finds joy in helping others, which is why I chose to become a nurse. I work at a busy hospital where the days are long and the hours can be grueling. On most days, I start my shift in the morning and finish late in the evening, and occasionally I have to work through the night. It's exhausting, but it's also incredibly rewarding. There's something deeply fulfilling about being there for people when they need it most. I've always felt that my life was simple. Even if it wasn't always easy, I didn't have a partner, and for the longest time, I didn't really mind. I spent my days at work and my nights alone, reading or watching TV. Occasionally I'd visit my mother, who lives in a small village outside the city. She's elderly now, and I always try to spend as much time with her as I can. She's my rock, the one person who always knows how to make me feel better, no matter what's going on in my life. But aside from that, I didn't really have anyone else close to me. Then, everything changed. A new doctor, David, started at the hospital. He was introduced as part of a new team of specialists, and from the moment I first saw him, I couldn't help but notice. He was about 2 years younger than me, 31, tall, with short brown hair, and these piercing blue eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. There was something magnetic about him. He had an energy that made people feel comfortable and seen, and he smiled constantly, which made everyone like him instantly. At first, I thought nothing of it. He was just another colleague in a hospital full of people, and I didn't expect to form any special connection with him. I mean, I was just an ordinary woman. I'm not overly slim, and I don't wear flashy clothes. I don't have long, flowing hair or a perfect figure. I've never been one to catch people's attention, and I certainly didn't think someone like David would ever be interested in me. But then, something unexpected happened. David started talking to me. At first it was just small talk. How was my day? How was the shift going? That kind of thing. But he didn't stop there. He'd ask about my weekend plans or how I was feeling. He made a point of smiling at me every day, and it felt different than the way he interacted with others. There was something personal in his gaze, something that made me feel like he was genuinely interested in who I was as a person. At first, I was flattered, but also confused. Why was he paying so much attention to me? There were so many beautiful, accomplished women in the hospital. Nurses, doctors, staff. Why me? I couldn't make sense of it. I didn't want to stay here. But despite my confusion, I found myself enjoying our conversations. I started looking forward to the moments when we'd cross paths, even if it was just for a brief chat in the hallway or over lunch in the cafeteria. And then, one evening after a late shift, he offered me a ride home. I didn't hesitate. I'd always felt safe around David, and his kindness made me trust him. He had a nice car and we chatted all the way home. About our work, our lives, our families. He told me about his childhood and some of his favourite places, and I did the same. By the time he dropped me off, I felt like I had known him for years. Over the next few weeks, David continued to drive me home after shifts. Sometimes he'd surprise me with a coffee or tea from the cafe, and we'd sit together talking about anything and everything. I found myself looking forward to seeing him every day. His kindness was refreshing, and he made me feel comfortable in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Then one weekend, David asked me if I wanted to go to the movies with him. He'd suggested it casually, as if it were just another thing friends did together. I didn't hesitate to agree. We both had a day off, and I found myself excited about the idea of spending time with him outside of work. The movie was great, and afterward we went for a long walk. We talked about our favourite movies, our dreams, and even our fears. It was the most open I had felt with anyone in a long time. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been able to talk to someone so freely. It felt like the world was smaller when I was with him, and everything felt right. As we walked under the stars, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, David felt the same way about me. Perhaps he liked me more than just a colleague. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about the way he looked at me, the way his smile made me feel warm inside. But just as I was beginning to let myself believe something could happen between us, David said something that would change everything. "Lily," he said, his voice suddenly serious, "there's something I need to tell you." I turned to look at him, concerned. "What is it?" David hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I'm married." The words hit me like a cold wave, leaving me stunned. Married? I had no idea. He never wore a wedding ring, and I had never heard him mention a wife. His confession caught me completely off guard. David continued, explaining that he had been married for 5 years to a woman named Emma. He told me that their marriage wasn't what he had hoped for. They didn't have much in common, and they had grown apart over the years. He said they didn't spend time together anymore, and they had no real emotional connection. David explained that, while he still cared for Emma, he hadn't felt truly alive in years. But when he was with me, he felt a spark, something he hadn't felt in a long time. I was speechless. The thought of him being married, of having another life outside of the connection we were building, was overwhelming. I liked him more than I had ever liked anyone in a long time, but I didn't want to be part of a situation that could hurt someone else. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about David and his wife, Emma. What kind of wife was she? Why was he telling me all of this? Why wasn't he just working on his marriage? I started to feel confused and conflicted. On one hand, I was flattered by the idea that David had feelings for me, but on the other hand, I didn't want to be the cause of a breakdown in someone's marriage. I knew I had to make a decision, whether to step back completely or confront the situation head on. Then a few days later, everything came to a head. I was at the supermarket in the city, just doing my usual grocery shopping, when I heard a familiar voice. It was David's voice. He was talking to someone, laughing, and I turned around to see him standing with a woman, his wife, Emma. Emma was everything David had described. Tall, stunningly beautiful, with dark hair and elegant clothing. She looked like someone straight out of a magazine, and they looked so happy together. They were laughing as they picked out items in the store, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. They seemed so perfect together, and I suddenly felt out of place, like I didn't belong in their world. I quickly left the store, my heart racing. I didn't want them to see me, and I didn't know how to handle what I had just witnessed. At home that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. Why was David spending time with me if he had such a beautiful wife? Why was he seeking comfort from me when he clearly had everything he needed with her? I realised that I couldn't keep ignoring the truth. I couldn't keep playing along as if everything was fine. I had to face the reality of the situation. That night, I barely slept. My mind was in turmoil. I knew I had to talk to David, but I was scared. Scared of the truth, scared of what I might discover, and scared of how it might change everything. But I also knew that I couldn't keep pretending. I had to make a choice. The next day at work, I saw David again. He smiled at me, but I couldn't return his smile. My heart was heavy, and I knew it was time to have a conversation. I pulled him aside during a quiet moment. "David, we need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. He looked at me, confused. "What's wrong, Lily?" "I saw you at the supermarket with your wife. I said. You looked happy. I don't understand why you're spending time with me if you're happy with her. David's face changed. His smile faded, and he looked deeply sad. I'm not happy, Lily, he said, his voice soft. Emma and we don't have the connection that you and I do. When I'm with you, I can be myself. I feel alive. You make me feel like I'm not just going through the motions of life. I was silent for a moment, trying to process his words. I liked him, but I didn't want to be the reason for someone else's pain. I didn't want to tear apart a marriage. After a long pause, I finally spoke. I care about you, David, I said. But I can't continue like this. You need to figure out what you really want. If you're not happy with Emma, you should talk to her, but I can't be the other woman. David nodded, his eyes filled with regret. I understand, Lily. I care about you too. I just don't want to hurt anyone, and I don't know what to do, but I respect your decision. We stood there for a moment, neither of us knowing exactly what to say next. I knew what I had to do. I needed to step away, give myself time to think, and make the right choice for my own happiness. A week later, David called me. He wanted to meet and talk. I was nervous, but I knew I had to be honest with him. We met at a park, and I told him how I felt. David, I said, I care about you, but I can't be in this situation anymore. You need to decide what you truly want. If you're not happy with Emma, you should talk to her. But I can't be the other woman. I deserve someone who can be with me fully. David looked sad, but he nodded. I understand, Lily. I probably must see now. I'll think about everything. I just want you to be happy. We said goodbye, and I walked home with a heavy heart. I'd made the right decision, but it wasn't easy. Life is full of tough choices, and sometimes we have to make the hardest ones to move forward. But, in the end, I knew I had chosen the path that was best for me, and even though it hurt, I was at peace with my decision. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is to choose yourself. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share.